Good morning, class. I am Sushmita J, Faculty, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Acharya Institute of Technology. Today I am here to present your last concept on scheduling. We have already seen 4 different videos of your CPU scheduling. We have come to the last concept of your CPU scheduling, that is your multiprocessor and thread scheduling. Now, what is the complexity that we have in your multiprocessor scheduling? All these days we looked into a concept something similar to this. Previously we just had process P1 and let me say to process P10, and I had a single CPU where I had to schedule these processes. Now when I say it is a multiprocessor, I have my ready queue with process P1 to process P10, but I have 4 CPUs with me. So previously I bought one of the process from the ready queue and I had to just schedule it onto a single process. Now my ready queue still remains intact, but I have 4 different processors on which I am supposed to schedule. So am I supposed to send it to this process? If I am supposed to send it to this process, what happens when one of the process is swapped out? Will it swap back to the same process? These are some of the questions for which we will find an answer. Having said that, let us start with your multiprocessor scheduling. As I told it to you, multiprocessor scheduling is much more complex than compared to your single processor scheduling. Here we are addressing to the processor that is homogeneous. When I say all 4 processors are of Intel processors itself, I am not taking a heterogeneous processors. The other thing that we see in a multiprocessor scheduling is load sharing. We make sure not just one process is heavily loaded and the other process is completely idle. We make sure that each processor has some process to execute with. Now, what are the approaches for multiprocessor scheduling? If you remember to the very first module that we discussed about your multiple processors. When we discussed about your multiprocessors, there are 2 types of multiprocessor. One is asymmetric and the other one is symmetric. So if you could just recall to the definitions of what is asymmetric and what is symmetric. Asymmetric follows a master-slave pattern. Now, for example, if I have 4 processes, I'll call it 1, 2, 3, 4. If I have 4 processes, in case of your asymmetric, one of these processors will act as a master process. If I say the processor 1, that is your CPU 1 acts as a master processor, and your CPU 2, 3 and 4 will act as a slave process. This is comparatively simple. So if I have a ready queue with a set of process, say P1 to P10, the master process shall decide which process is going to which processor or CPU is going to execute which process. So we have one dedicated CPU or processor that acts as a master processor, and that is going to assign the process to other processors that is available in the system. So this is simpler to implement than compared to your symmetric multiprocessor. Now, what happens in your symmetric multiprocessor? As we had seen to the definition of what is your SMP, here it follows a peer type of execution. So when I say it is a peer type of execution, there is no concept of your master and there is no concept of your slave. Every processor executes by itself. So every processor is free to choose a process from the ready queue and schedule itself. We also say there is a self-scheduling mechanism in your symmetric multiprocessor. When I say it is a self-scheduling mechanism, there is one thing that we have to be very careful about. If I say there are a set of processes, I say P1, P2, P3 and so on. Now I said each processor is going to schedule itself. It is going to pick up a process from the ready queue and it is going to schedule itself. Now what if there are two processes that is selecting the same process? This is something that we should restrict and take care of. We should ensure that no two processes picks up the same process. That is one of the complexities when we have about your symmetric multiprocessing. Apart from this, we have other challenges also with the symmetric multiprocessing, that is with the processor affinity. Now, what is processor affinity? Okay, now what is processor affinity and how is it so important? A couple of minutes earlier, we discussed about your symmetric multiprocessor and we said symmetric multiprocessor has a self-scheduling capability. Now, when I say it has a self-scheduling capability, it is going to schedule by itself. We have also learned about the concepts of your context switching and the process being swapped in and swapped out of your CPU. Now, in a case when the process is swapped out of a CPU, there are chances that there could be another processor that could pick up this process. Now let me say I have two process P1 and P2. I have assigned my process P1 to my CPU 1, and due to priority reasons or any reasons, I have my process P2 that comes in, and now process P2 is swapped in and process P1 is swapped out. So this is basically back to the ready queue. When I say this is back to the ready queue, there are high chances that this process could be picked up by another processor. You may think, what is an issue if that will be picked up by another processor? The issue is with the cache memory that every processor maintains. Every processor maintains a cache memory. So when P1 was executing on the CPU 1, there would be some content that is populated in this cache memory. Now, if P1 starts its execution on another processor, say CPU 2, the cache memory of CPU 1 should be erased and the cache memory of CPU 2 should be populated. That is the reason, in case of your symmetric multiprocessor scheduling, we recommend processor affinity. So, if a process gets out of the CPU, it should come back to the same CPU. It should come back to the same CPU that it was running. I repeat, if process P1 was swapped out of the CPU 1, the processor affinity tells it should come back to the same process. Now we have two types or two forms of the same. We have soft affinity and hard affinity. In both the cases, it tells that the process has to come back to the same processor it was running. In case of soft affinity, at some cases it cannot guarantee that it may come back. But in case of hard affinity, it assures and it is be very specific that the process comes back to the same processor. The other thing that we have in a multiprocessor environment is about load sharing. Now, what is load sharing? As we discussed in the starting slides, we do not want one CPU to be heavily loaded and another CPU to be idle. So load sharing or load balancing makes sure that every processor in the system is balanced. It is not, one is not heavy and the other one is not idle. So in case if one is heavy, it uses a mechanism where it transfers the load to another process. So here we have the push and pull migration. So what is about push and pull migration? In case of push migration, there would be one processor that continuously monitors all other processor. So there would be one processor that continuously monitors the load of all the three processor. Whichever has the less load, it shall be pushed with the new load. In case of your pull migration, each processor checks the weight and it shall pull the load by itself. So that is about your push migration and pull migration. In case of your push migration, it shall push the load to the other processor. In case of your pull migration, the processor itself checks and pulls the load from the heavily loaded processor. The next thing that we have is about your thread scheduling. Let us recall to the few concepts of your thread scheduling. So we had studied about user level thread, we had studied about the kernel level thread. So what is a user level thread? What is a kernel level thread? Who manages the user level thread? Who manages the kernel level threads? So user level threads are managed by the thread library, and to execute this user level thread we need to map it to one of the kernel level thread. We had seen various thread models like one to one, one to many, many to one, and so on. In the thread scheduling, in your thread scheduling, let me take the models of many to one and many to many. So we had many user level threads and a single kernel level thread. User level threads and a single kernel level thread. And the scheduler activation, the concept that we studied something about your LWP, that was your lightweight processor. Now thread scheduling comes up to the concept of your contention scope. So we have two approaches of contention scope: process contention scope and system contention scope. Now what I represented here is of a single process. This is of, let me say, process P1. So what happens in process contention scope? We decide which among these three threads shall be scheduled onto this kernel. Which among these three threads shall be scheduled onto the kernel is about your process contention scope. Now I say this similarly, I have three more processes. Let me say process P2 and let me say process P3. Each of it also has a kernel thread that is come. Now system contention scope decides which among these three kernel threads will be given to the CPU. So process contention talks about deciding the threads within the same process, whereas system contention talks about the threads system-wide to the CPU. If I have to just simplify my definition, I call it as the local scheduling and global scheduling. In case of your local scheduling, we decide which user thread shall be scheduled onto your lightweight process. In case of your global scheduling, we decide which kernel thread shall be running on the CPU next. The last concept that we have is about your pthreads, which talks about the implementation of your process contention scope and system contention scope. How could we be doing it programmatically? So done using pthread scheduling. If you recall, when we discussed about the multi-threading concepts, we had discussed about the support of thread libraries of pthread, Java APIs and Windows APIs. Now pthread is your POSIX thread APIs. So this allows to specify whether a thread follows your process contention scope or system contention scope during the creation of the thread. So that is done using this symbolic constant. So we can specify this symbolic constant during the creation, and specify whether it follows a process contention scope or a system contention scope. Now when during the creation, if I specify it to follow the process contention scope, so the user thread shall be mapped to the available lightweight process. We also have APIs to retrieve the scope and to set the scope also if we have not done at the time of the creation. I have a small glimpse of code that shows you how this particular symbolic constant could be used. You can notice here I have highlighted it with the red color. So I am explicitly setting the scope to be of system contention. So this is how we could be programmatically implementing your thread scheduling using your pthreads. So I think Java is a part of your curriculum and you have Java threads there, but Java threads and window thread API is not a part of the curriculum, so I'm not getting deep there. For you to experiment and learn, you can always explore in your Java as well. There are provisions to implement it. So this is about your multiprocessor and thread scheduling. Thank you, students.